Have you ever noticed something strange? You spend years chasing a goal, convinced that reaching it will finally bring peace. Maybe it was more money, a stronger relationship, a better opportunity, or simply a more stable life. Then, one day, things improve. The bills become manageable, the relationship feels secure, the future looks clearer than it did before. And yet, somehow, your mind refuses to relax. Instead of enjoying what is finally going well, it immediately finds something else to worry about. A new risk, a new uncertainty, a new problem waiting somewhere on the horizon. It's as if the moment one concern disappears, another quietly takes its place. Most people assume this means something is wrong with them. They wonder why gratitude feels so temporary, why satisfaction slips through their fingers so quickly. But what if this pattern isn't a personal failure at all? What if the real reason your brain does this has almost nothing to do with your actual problems? Because once you understand what's happening beneath the surface, you'll start seeing your worries in a completely different way. To understand why this happens, you have to understand what your brain was originally built to do. Most people assume the mind is designed to make them happy, calm, and fulfilled. In reality, its first priority is something much older and much simpler: survival. For most of human history, staying alive depended on noticing danger before it was too late. The people who paid attention to rustling bushes, strange sounds, shifting weather, or signs of conflict were more likely to survive and pass on their genes. Over thousands of generations, the brain became incredibly efficient at scanning for threats. That ancient system is still running today. The problem is that your brain does not automatically distinguish between a predator in the wild and a potential problem in your future. An unanswered message, a financial uncertainty, or a difficult conversation can trigger the same attention system that once protected your ancestors. This is why negative information often feels louder than positive information. Good news is pleasant, but possible danger feels urgent. The mind treats what might go wrong as more important than what is already going right. Here is the surprising realization. Your brain often sees peace as a temporary break between threats. And once you recognize that hidden pattern, many of your daily worries begin to make far more sense. Once you see that your brain is constantly scanning for threats, another pattern becomes impossible to ignore. The moment one problem is solved, the mind quietly begins searching for the next one. Think about how often this happens in real life. You work tirelessly for a promotion, believing it will remove stress and finally prove your capabilities. Then the promotion arrives, and for a brief moment, you feel relief. But soon a new concern appears. Now you're worried about performance, expectations, and whether you can keep succeeding. The same thing happens with money. For years, financial security feels like the answer. Yet once stability arrives, many people stop worrying about getting enough and start worrying about losing what they have. Relationships follow a similar path. You long for connection, companionship, and love. Then, when the relationship becomes real, the mind shifts its attention toward maintaining it, protecting it, or imagining ways it could go wrong. Notice what is happening beneath the surface. The brain is not celebrating solved problems for very long. It is substituting them with future concerns. One target disappears, and another immediately takes its place. At first, this seems harmless, but over time, something deeper can happen. And this is where most people accidentally train themselves to stay anxious. Without realizing it, they begin treating worry as preparation and uncertainty as something that must always be monitored. The deeper question is this: if worry makes us feel so exhausted, why does the mind keep returning to it? Because hidden inside worry is a reward that most people never notice. When you imagine future problems, your brain often interprets that process as preparation. Running through possibilities, rehearsing conversations, predicting risks, and analyzing outcomes can create a subtle feeling of control. It feels responsible. It feels proactive. It even feels productive. But there is a crucial difference between preparing for reality and endlessly rehearsing possibilities. The mind frequently blurs that line. You may spend 20 minutes worrying about something that has not happened, and afterward feel as though you've accomplished something meaningful. Yet nothing in the external world has changed. No action was taken, no problem was solved. The brain simply experienced the temporary comfort of feeling prepared. This is the major revelation that changes everything. Most people believe they're managing life. In reality, they're managing imaginary future scenarios. Once that pattern repeats often enough, it begins forming a habit loop. A potential threat appears, the mind starts analyzing. Analysis creates a brief sense of control. That feeling reinforces the behavior. Then the next uncertainty arrives, and the cycle begins again. Over time, problem-seeking becomes automatic. The brain learns that whenever uncertainty appears, more thinking must be the answer. And the strange part is that the habit can continue even when life is going remarkably well, because the reward was never certainty. The reward was the feeling of control itself. At first, constant problem hunting seems harmless, even responsible. After all, you're trying to stay prepared. You're trying to protect what matters. But the hidden cost is far greater than most people realize. When the mind is always focused on what could go wrong next, it becomes difficult to fully experience what is going right now. A meaningful conversation passes by while you're thinking about tomorrow. An achievement feels smaller than it should because you're already focused on the next challenge. Moments that deserve appreciation are filtered through a mind searching for flaws, risks, and unfinished business. Gradually, gratitude begins to fade, not because there is nothing to appreciate, but because your attention rarely stays long enough to notice it. This creates a painful contradiction. Life may objectively improve, yet emotionally, you feel as though you're still waiting for something, still preparing, still trying to arrive. And then another layer appears: guilt. You look around and recognize that many things are going well. You know you should feel happier than you do, yet the feeling never fully settles in. That realization can become exhausting.
Years can pass this way. People spend enormous portions of their lives waiting for a future moment when everything will finally feel complete, unaware that they are overlooking a present that is already far better than they once dreamed possible. The shift begins with a surprisingly simple question, yet it changes the entire relationship you have with your mind. Instead of accepting every worry as something urgent or meaningful, you start asking, is this problem actually happening right now? Not tomorrow, not in a possible future scenario, right now, in this moment. This single distinction separates real problems from imagined ones. Real problems require action. Imagined ones usually require attention more than anything else. And attention, when misplaced, becomes the source of unnecessary stress. When you start practicing this separation, something subtle begins to change. You realize how often the mind confuses preparation with obsession. Planning for the future is useful, but endlessly rehearsing it without action only strengthens anxiety. So you begin redirecting your focus. Instead of feeding every thought, you notice it, label it, and gently return to what is actually present, what is already stable, what is already working, even if it is not perfect. At first, the mind resists this. It has spent years believing that thinking more equals being safer. But over time, awareness grows stronger than impulse. And slowly, a new kind of clarity starts to emerge. You are no longer trapped inside every thought your mind produces. You are able to step back, observe, and choose where your attention goes. But there is one simple daily habit that makes this shift dramatically easier.
and it changes how quickly the mind learns to let go of unnecessary worry.
That habit is simpler than most people expect, but its effect is profound. Once a day, pause and ask yourself, what is actually okay right now?